Let's talk about the brand new Pixel 7a. Does this phone reach an area in the market, or maybe does the 6a still hit the sweet spot in price and performance? Or is there enough in this to merit an upgrade to this Pixel device? So some of the things that have changed in the newest Pixel 7a, or the Pixel budget line of phones, is the screen. The screen now supports a 90 hertz refresh rate, as opposed to the 6a, which only supported your standard 60 hertz. So this is definitely a plus to making the phone feel a little smoother and future-proof. And some of the other things that also account to that performance of the phone is some of the other capabilities of the internals, and that is the Tensor G2 processor. Unlike the 6a, which is running on the G1 processor, you have the most modern Tensor processor from Google out there right now. So what are the advantages of it over the Pixel 6a? Well, it's really multi-core processing, or running multiple apps, or your high performance games, or really any games in general will probably be where you notice the most of it. The increased RAM will help, of course, as well. Ironically, one of the places that I do notice it the most is on boot time. It's quite a bit considerable difference that you can visibly see of the Pixel 7a booting faster. Now, you don't do that on a daily basis, so it's not a big thing. But it's just those little things throughout the system you'll notice a little bit of a difference on performance. And of course, with this device, because of the newer SoC and the additional RAM, which is 8 gig, the price for this also comes into play. And the price is $500 for the Pixel 7a. Before, it was a $450 phone, which kept it right in line with the Samsung A54, which that's what you can get the Samsung A54 right now for, is $450. So this one is a little bit higher. Do I believe that the benefits of it are worth that $50? Absolutely. You're getting a better processor than what you're getting on the Samsung, and some other benefits, even maybe one negative of not as long of security and updates to Android that Samsung is now. But that could change, and we could get 4 years out of it instead of 3. That's up to Google to make that change. But as shown in the Geekbench scores here as well, which, you know, this isn't day-to-day use. I rarely run these, but I put these in the videos just for comparisons for the people, the stat nerds that like to see this stuff. Your day-to-day is what matters, and what apps you're using may differ. And one app that may have not worked great on the 6a may be better on the 7a now, or vice versa. This comes down to developers really working on the apps as well. But overall, I can see a performance improvement in the Tensor G2. The battery life is about a 4385 battery. So, you know, I've recently reviewed the Samsung A54. If you didn't watch that video, it's up there. But it had a 5,000 milliamp battery instead of the 4385 of the Pixel. Are you really noticing a difference though? It is a pretty decent bump up in battery on the Samsung A54, but you might be surprised. You may not, with Google's performance of the stock Android, may not really notice that big of a difference. Along with other benefits in the 7a compared to the 6a is a smidge bump up in wired charging at 18 watt. Sure, this is definitely not your 35, 45, or even higher than that of your premium smartphones, but this is where some of the corners get cut in the budget phones. But one thing that I think is a very nice addition, even though it is a slower 7.5 watt, is wireless charging. That is a big thing that the 6a doesn't have, and honestly, a lot of budget phones do not have. So it's very nice to see this one finally getting a wireless charging option. Yes, it's slower than most of your phones now that support 10 or 15 watt charging, but you still have the option is the most important part. So most importantly, what we're here to talk about at length is the cameras. So these cameras on this bad boy are actually the newest spec bump in cameras, even over this Pixel 7. Now the Pixel 7 actually has a little bit higher performing cameras and has 3 cameras opposed to only having 2. But as far as specs go, they are a smidge higher on the main camera. So let's talk about those cameras. The main camera is a 64 megapixel. I believe the Pixel 7 is a 52, so just a very smidge update or boost. And what that does is that is actually doing bending, so you're not really gaining the full use of the 64 megapixels. It's actually doing bending to crop the sensor down to a standard 12 to 13, etc. megapixel size. And what we'll see here is actually if we do take a picture, it is actually a 16 megapixel photo. So you actually get quite a bit more detail in your photo for zooming in or keeping that high quality during low light situations. On to the other cameras though. There are a wide angle 13 megapixel and a 13 megapixel front camera. So these are fairly good as well. Now as far as your zoom, you do not get any zoom features in this camera. It's all digital. So just bear in mind, if you're looking for a zoom camera, this is not the one you're looking for. But honestly, the A54 was not really either. If you remember in that review, I talked about the macro lens that Samsung includes. This is again how manufacturers cut corners, is by reducing or implementing cheap lenses. So for primary lens, of course, on this one is your main camera lens at 64 megapixel. And so that we have some comparisons, pictures taken on the Pixel 6a versus the Pixel 7a. So what we can see here is if you do a lot of pixel peeping, you can actually see that there is definitely more light being brought into the picture with the Pixel 7a. And if you wonder about the lens on the 6a, that is actually a 12 megapixel on the main. It's actually, I believe, the same lens that was used for several generations of Pixels all the way back. I think starting with the 2 or the 3. So this was a very tried and true lens for Google for several years. So it's been very tuned to its highest capability, but having that larger pixels and being able to bend and pull in all the higher quality can't be matched with the newer 64 megapixel camera on the 7a. And one of the other features that this phone offers is IP67. And so this is dust and water resistance. It's not 68, making it like waterproof to a certain submergible distance. This may not be a popular opinion because a lot of people are stating right now that you should wait or you shouldn't skip this phone. I think it really depends on the situation. I think the 7a is a very good phone. It has a very high performance chip in it. If you compare that to the Samsung A54 using the Exynos chip, the G2 processor is way more capable than the Exynos. So as far as longevity goes, you're going to get way more out of your Pixel 7a than you would a Samsung A54. But you may be in a region that doesn't offer the purchase of the Pixel 7a, and then of course you would have to get the Samsung A54 if you're looking at the best budget phones. But with that, it does have a compelling argument that now this phone is $450. as previous models were cheaper than that, the Pixel 6a or A series. But the Pixel 6a can still be purchased as well at a lower cost too. And you can find that from multiple companies that sell the Pixel, not even just on the Google store, at a cheaper rate. So I do think if this is an upgrade path you are looking at over the 6a, I do think this is a viable solution. It really depends on what you're looking for in a phone. Do you want that refresh rate, a little bit better build quality, a little bit better screen, and definitely a better camera? Then I think it's worth it. But as a tip, if you're not in a hurry to get the upgrade, you might even wait a couple months. These things will probably go on sale quick. And with Amazon having its summer Prime Day, you likely could probably even pick one up at a discount on Prime Day. So you may even just wait a couple months, or even wait until the fall when it's probably going to be discounted at that point. And you can even save more, at least 50 bucks, dropping it back down to its $400 initial price of the 6a. So I understand where a lot of reviewers are saying maybe you should go ahead and get the Pixel 7. Yes, the Pixel 7 has a better build quality, is more of a pro model phone, but it just really depends on what you're looking for in a phone. And you can get it discounted on a Pixel 7 as well now. Both are very identical in what they're capable of doing. You do have a couple other benefits with the Pixel 7, but I guarantee you over the course of time, you're going to see larger price cuts on the 7a as opposed to the 7. So it just depends on what you're really looking for. But I think either way, you can't go wrong with a Pixel phone. You'll be able to get the newest and greatest Android versions, as well as Pixel drops, and those always offer nice, neat features directly from Google. But if you haven't recently picked up a Pixel phone and kind of wanting to stay in the budget line of phones, I highly recommend getting the Pixel 7a, as it's probably the best budget phone out on the market right now. So leave me some comments below if you have any questions about this phone, if there's anything you want to cover. I did a couple shorts on the special edition case that you can only get from the Google store. I'll leave that in the description as well. It's a pretty nice case from Casemate, and I'll see you in the next video.